Welcome to the Ageless Living Collaborative webinar on aging in place. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I know a number of you are still loading into the system. We've got a large audience. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Phoebe Stein, president of Olive Presents and a co-founder of Ageless Living Collaborative. My partner and co-founder, David Ashen, although you don't see him, will be running the back of the show and helping us to bring imagery that will support the content today. So thank you, David. You might hear some of our panelists say, David, we need this slide. Now you know who David is. I'd like to introduce the panel. We'll start with Lisa Sinney, who is one of our collaborators from the beginning. She is founder and president and CEO of Mosaic Design Studio. She hails from Columbus. We are thrilled that Kevin Swanson is able to join us. We didn't think he was. We thought he was going to be on an install. And as luck would have it, he gets to bring his expertise to today's panel. He is Director of Interior Design at Hawthorne Construction Group, and he hails from Seattle. Dale Miller is a founding member of our ALC. She is President and Chief Creative Officer of Daring by Design. She is in the beautiful Weather Envy area of Boca Raton. And we are really thrilled to have our special guest today, Linda Kafka. Linda is our neighbor to the north. She hails from Canada and is Director of Livable Environment, Inc. And we're really thrilled to have this panel together today. This is especially important because aging in place is everywhere we look. It is on HGTV where people are looking for their forever home. I have seen more shows where people want a first floor bedroom, but it's not just about a first floor master suite. There's so much more to it. And whether you've decided to age in place at home, or your parents or your great grandparents are aging at home, or if you have decided to go into a senior living community, there are things that need to come into play. So we're going to discuss both sides of the equation, the aging in place at home, as well as in a senior living community. So without further ado, I'm going to have our guest, Linda, kick off the session. Linda, what is the most important aspect of aging in place?
That is a great question. What a great question to kick off this webinar. I think a lot of people will think it has to do with safety, reducing falls and so on, but really the important aspect of aging in place is really about living independently. It positively impacts the quality of your life if you can live independently. And we know through organizations like ARP and up in Canada here, the CARP, Sister Association, when they put out surveys, they've identified that 80% of people want to remain in their home. But if we look right now at at our situation and COVID and the pandemic, one of the biggest problems that a lot of people have been facing, not only in isolation, but as they try to live independently, they've been really restricted on reaching out to their family members or community support to come into the home to help them. So, I think it's really important that aging in place is all about independence. It's about living independently.
Agreed. And the isolation issues we've certainly touched on a couple of times. We've now done 2 webinars on isolation. I would imagine we'll probably do another one because it is a big problem, whether you're living in a community or living independently at home. And so we will continue that conversation. Dale, why do some people prefer to remain at home rather than go to a senior living community?
Well, people enjoy being in their own neighborhood. They like being near their family if their family lives nearby. Also, they like to be near their doctor and things as mundane as their dry cleaner. They're accustomed to being in a certain place at a certain time. So here's an illustration of an interesting project that we're completing. The picture on the left side is the original space which our clients inherited from parents. And so they moved in with all of this furniture that's there on the left side. What we did is we recreated the space very intentionally, first by changing the flooring and the furniture. And very importantly, we also changed the artwork with their personal art. And they're so comfortable because they've made changes that really make a difference in their lives. They went from those ugly, clunky recliners to the streamlined the type that are in the picture on the right, and they're so comfy, cozy, they fall asleep in those. Sometimes you need to think about where you live and where you might be comfortable. Here's another aspect of that. In redoing a bathroom, we created a universal design so that they could not step over a curb or down a step to get into the shower, that they had beautiful vessels as their sinks and towel warmer and every other thing that we could think of to make them more comfortable within their environment so that they didn't have to move to a senior living community. If you're healthy and happy and you love your neighborhood, then why not stay at home? Just have someone who understands aging in place come into your home, evaluate it, and take charge of renovating it so that you can age in place forever.
Well, I think that there's a big movement afoot on that. I think we're all talking about it because of that. And people really don't know how to make that happen other than the first floor bedroom, right? So the best idea for them is certainly to employ somebody who's expert at that, because just like childproofing your house, you think you know what you're doing, but until you call the expert in who gets down on his hands and knees and says, well, you've missed all of this, you really don't know, have you safety proofed it? And I think, on the other end of life, it's very similar to when you were childproofing. Now you want to make sure, your parents are safe in their environment. Lisa, how do you know if aging in place at home versus senior living community is right for you?
I think that's a fantastic question, because I think it's not, there's not an answer for each person that's the same. So as a senior living designer and doing aging in place, I think, it is so important to know who you are and personalize this. I think the AARP study in the United States, Linda, was like 90% of people wanted to age in place at home, but that's very specific. So let's say you have that idea, but then your kids move away for a job and the grandkids, and your spouse passes and your neighbors have all changed over. You may no longer want to age in place at home. You may want to go to a senior living, which is wonderful. It's like a country club mashed in with a hotel and some services, to be able to have a sense of community and to get new friends and to do activities and to really live and feel safe. On the other hand, I have a ton of people, not only that I interview, but in my family, that are like, I just want to die in my house. That's it. I don't even want to move to a first floor story thing. They're done and they're comfortable. They like where they're at. They like the seasons. They like the neighborhood. They like knowing the mailman. And I think quite often we forget how much peace that provides in us, that allows us to not be nervous all the time. And that's a wonderful thing. So if you have that and you want that, then certainly move forward and do things before you need to. I always say you have to plant your garden before you need the harvest. So I think both are equally good, but you really need to look at the environment, what you're looking for, and who can support you through this whole journey.
Right. Well, I think that's a really important piece, that last piece, who's going to support you through the journey, because you may have all of the at-home pieces in place. You may have called in the experts on aging in place. And as you said, your family members could have moved away, your neighbors could have moved away, and now you need a doctor's appointment and you don't want to get in an Uber by yourself. So there are some other pieces to take into consideration as well. Kevin, you do a lot with aging in place in a community. So how do you design a CCRC community and an assisted living community? How are those designs different and how do they support people?
So within a CCRC or a continuing care residential community, you will have all of the adventures of aging kind of in one place, under one roof, or even on one plot of land. And so the design there can actually be can be quite fun, because you will have different levels of the aging process. There are things you don't necessarily need to worry about with any degenerative sort of aspects of aging. If you are in a independent living, assisted living, they're there for a need for their daily activities. And then that goes into memory care, which obviously has a lot more different design aspects you need to deal with. It could be more psychological with you. I think it's important to design for all of these different levels. Again, coming back to the independence part of what we're discussing, is that someone in their home has different areas to go for what they want to do. So trying to create that in a assisted living or even in an independent living community can be a challenge. So you want to create different pockets to go to, some that are light and bright and airy, some that are a little bit more intimate. For here, there's different activities can be happening in a space. We have cards, we have different types of crafts activities, different places to sit in front of the fireplace. And even if you want to go onto a quiet, more darker place to have a nice talk, or just to like calm down for a moment, you need to create these spaces where someone can actually go to that space if they don't want to be in their apartment. In memory care, it's even more important, because you want to be able to not use medication to actually assist someone in calming down or coming back into a lucid situation, I guess is technical. So again, here's a dining room that we did in a assisted living, which can be a little bit different than independent. Independent living can have multiple restaurant styles. Assisted living typically just has one space where they will dine, more at the same time. A little bit different here. For cleanability, we have hard surface. Sometimes for more elegant, independent feeling, like a true restaurant, you'll have carpet. So those are some of the differences you will find within the assisted living and in a continuing care, which would include independent living.
So we have a question. We've got an image of a resident room, and we have a question which I think is a good time to bring online. Carly asks, is there a way to bring personal touches to the communities that can make it feel like aging in place at home? Every time that we do a project in a different city, we will do what I call, at my dog and pony show, I kind of go secret shop the other buildings, and I also kind of visit the community. And I do try to find different aspects of that community that I can bring into the building that will give these residents a sense that they are still in the town they've lived in. You don't overdo it, but you kind of bring in that flow. But in these model apartments, maybe this will address that question. I'm not sure. But when a designer is creating these model apartments, and David, if you even want to go to the next slide, this is showing a larger bed. It's not a twin. This is a full. But here, there's a little table in there. It's like, hey, mom, look, you can bring your dining table in. And this will make this feel more like home versus I'm moving into a new place. Or that really great piece of art you and dad bought when you were in Spain. Let's look at the space. You can put it up above, your sofa. So I think in creating these model apartment spaces for the residents, as well as the common spaces, what do I say? How do I say it? It's like what Lisa was saying, their neighborhood is no longer their neighborhood. And so they're needing to come into this space. Let's show them that they can make it as much as their space as possible. And now they can create a new life there.
I think it's also important to let everyone know that they can bring their own furniture in their apartment.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people think that they're not allowed, but that's highly encouraged. And then it's your home. That's your part of your home.
Correct.
Right. And boy, some of the people really do bring a lot of their furniture.
David, on the next slide, just really quick. I know we need to get through this, but this is a typical memory care apartment in our buildings that we create. This has a shared bathroom between the two, and where I'm standing to my right would be a small sink, so they have a private sink. But I'm able to get a TV stand in there, a couple of lounge chairs, and of course a twin size bed. it feels very warm and homey, and this is a place they could kind of cocoon in if they need to calm down a little bit. But we are creating out in these memory care common spaces, a living room, an activity space, a place to do music, a place to do artwork. And so they don't always need to be in these apartments. But again, I'm trying to show how much you can bring in from home, you know, your favorite table, your favorite lamp, your favorite TV, whatever it is that you want to bring can completely fit into these apartments and be home.
Does somebody look at what people move into a space to make sure that they are safe in that space? When you go to a community, is there somebody who kind of takes a look and says, this is the better configuration, or this is too much, or is there anybody who gives that feedback?
I don't know of any, but if someone who's out there listening with an operator, if they might have a comment, they can put it up on our comment board. Again, I just try to show how they can fill the space with, and I think enough for them to live in the space, not overwhelm it, but to safely get through the space.
Actually, there's two other aspects of that. One is most communities have a move-in coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
That person helps them to orient themselves to the new community. They also usually have a list of people that can help you with your downsizing, with your moving, with your packing, and all of those things. And those people are highly professional and skilled at doing this sort of thing. So at the community level, there's almost always resources right there.
That's terrific to know. Dale, what does a certified aging in place designation mean? Why do people need to hire somebody who is actually certified in this and not somebody who just thinks they could make a good decision? What's the difference?
The difference is that I'm going to tell this to you through a short story. We've designed senior living communities for over 20 years, including one that my father lived at for several years. And he transitioned from independent living to assisted living to memory support. And I lived not far away, so I was there a lot. And after my dad passed, I started to think about those people who really didn't want to live in a community. And as I researched, I discovered that the National Association of Home Builders gave you the opportunity to train as a certified aging in place specialist. And so I took the training and I learned quite a bit, in spite of the fact that in Florida, interior designers are actually regulated by the state. And that's a picture of my current license and also the CAPS insignia. And so you learn a good deal about how people move, how they age as you train as an aging in place specialist. So combining the knowledge that we as designers have in understanding space, understanding building codes, and combining that with how people age, how their bodies age, how their minds age. When you train and you get certified, then you have what I think is really a blueprint for enabling people to come into your home, to evaluate it, and to transform it so that you are comfortable, safe, and thriving in your environment.
Well, let's take this outside for a second, because you're in Florida, a lot happens outside. And Suzanne asked, what about design features for outdoor spaces?
This is very important. So if you live in a private home, you might think about starting at the curbside, coming up your driveway into your garage and through the laundry room. There are times when we become a little bit more unsteady on our feet through illness or an accident. You can resurface your driveway so that it takes a very slight incline going right through your garage. You can actually eliminate that step that brings you into your mudroom or your laundry room. And if you, in addition, add the appropriate lighting leading you up your front door path, or even in a condominium building or an apartment building, being sure that you have sufficient light, and also this illustration really says it all. If you have color separation so that the door is very visible, if you have a bench or a shelf or a little table where you can put your packages down, your purse, your briefcase, so that you can unlock that door, you're so much safer. And it's a great trick to use for everyone, not just people that are growing older, but teenagers carry a whole lot of stuff with them, and they can trip and fall just as well as my grandparents.
Makes sense. Linda, how does a person age in place at home? And I would think gracefully. What is aging in place with regard to ageless design?
Okay, those are two good questions there. How does a person age in place at home? You know, just to reflect on some of the information that Dale just, or comment on some of the information that Dale just gave us in terms of, you know, accessing your front door. We're looking at the safety aspect. We're looking at the security aspect. We're looking at comfort. And so those are ease of use is another one. So you're looking at it through a different lens. And this is where a certified aging in place professional really combined with their interior design or decorating or remodelers knowledge certainly comes and helps the homeowner. You know, ideally, how great is that if we had that zero threshold entrance at the front and we had, you know, access to a full bathroom on the main floor and, you know, sleeping facilities in the event that you had 2 stories. There's so many different factors in terms of how to really help people age at place or to, you know, or what they could be doing in that, adding additional lighting to their spaces. Here's a great example of lighting that we've added to the stairwell. You know, we often forget about things that are really critical as we age, and it starts in your 40s, your eye starts to diminish. So having that layered lighting within that space, offering that contrast. David, if you want to bring that up. So here we've got examples of not just the ambient lighting, but we've got task lighting. And so, you know, we've got different kinds of lighting that are really going to help you in that space. I love that the kitchen designers are now putting lighting strips underneath their cabinetry. We're seeing motion lighting under the beds now, in the bathrooms to really, so that we're not disturbing our circadian rhythm at night. But if you have to get into the kitchen and you've got this low light underneath the cabinetry, you can find your way in there and not, you know, worry about tripping or falling in a dark environment. So those are a few things. One of the big ones, lighting is huge, but one of the other ones that's really important is color. And David, if you can show the contrast, there you go. HGTV in Canada, we love gray. Every house is gray. I just want to do gray on gray on gray when I go down to the High Point Furniture Market. And yet color is plays such a significant role, not just in being able to look at the trip hazard in this environment. If you did everything white, color is so important, and it actually contributes to your health and to your quality of life. But it can also, if you have a progressive condition like dementia, it can also help with safety and wayfinding within your space. So, I mean, we could really, you know, through my caps and Dale, we've learned this. I've taken other courses in addition to this, but there's so many ways that you can really look at your home from the kitchen, zero threshold, and the products that the designers are specifying and how you move within that space and how you feel within that space. There's so many things that we can do to age in place. And surprisingly, every time I think I know it, along comes something new, because we're seeing so much, so many more products that are being either redesigned or invented to really address the population that is wanting to stay at home. So I think we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years, a significant amount of information and new products on the market that we never dreamed of to support us to age in place.
Well, I think that that's a good thing, because as our own ALC collaborator Faith pointed out, only 4% of residential homes in the US, only 4% are accessible. So there's a lot of work to be done.
A lot of work. I can tell you in the Canadian market, 80% of our housing stock needs to be modified in order for people to remain at home. And that's not even talking, we're not even talking about accessibility. When you talk to the design trade, accessibility if you use the word accessibility, right away, I know in the Canadian market, we immediately think of the building code. I know now that, or I have heard that we are looking at increasing accessibility in the residential sector, and it's going to be coming down the pipeline in the next few years. We are a little bit behind the US when it comes to accessibility. So if you've got 4%, we're going to have less up here.
Ooh, not good. Well, we've got another question, and I think what I'm going to do is, Kevin, I'm going to have you lead into it, and then we'll answer some of these questions. How is aging in place different at home versus in a senior living community? And how important is it to work with the operator when you have all ages and stages of aging in one building?
That's really important. When you're aging at home, you're kind of by yourself, maybe with a caregiver living in or caregiver coming in. When you're aging in place in a community, you are living with 80 to 100 other people, different personalities, and a much larger space. And so when you are starting to design spaces for a community, for instance, getting to understand how that operator runs that building and how their activities or operations and then how they care for the residents is really, really important to learn, so you can then design properly to create these spaces of a home versus this being a big cavernous building with really no place to have an intimate small place to kind of go to, like you would in your home, your dining room, your kitchen, bedroom, whatever you want to do. So I think that's kind of the difference, and working with that operator to understand exactly what they want to offer their residents should be the utmost importance to you as a designer.
And at the same time, we have a question about, as society gets older, will there be market trends toward more people staying at home or an increase in the popularity of senior living communities? I'm not an expert, but I would think there's certainly a lot of possibility for both, right? That there are going to be people who always want to live at home and stay at home till their last breath. And there are going to be people who want to be part of a community, who don't want to be alone, who are willing to take that chance to meet new friends and to have a new support system, because maybe, as Lisa pointed out, their kids have moved away and their neighbors have changed. So I think that there's a great opportunity for both.
Phoebe, I'd just like to jump in and say I think it's about choice, and what we're seeing, it's about personalization and having choice. Back in the 70s, you didn't have a choice. You didn't age at home. You went into a facility. But look how much has changed. And I have to say, one of the big things that I'm noticing starting to happen in the Canadian market is we're looking at what you're doing in the US, and we're looking at some of those smaller facilities that might only have 12 residents. So if you're looking at the residential assisted living communities,
Yep.
And perhaps maybe that might be a better option for you. But the fact is that we're going to see more and more options like never before.
Right. No, I agree. And it's a good thing. Options are always good. Dale or Lisa, do you want to answer this question we have from Ashley? Do you think there is a market for aging at home at the luxury level?
So do you want to go ahead, Dale, or you want me to?
All I say is absolutely. No question about it. You can live so luxuriously in your home with the greatest technology, and Lisa can talk a good deal more about that technology. She's quite an expert on that.
Thank you. You know what, Phoebe, I think when my slides come up in that, I can kind of talk through that. Well,
let's get to it. We've got, what I was going to ask you about was your favorite things, not to sound like Julie Andrews, but what are your top 3 items to change in your home to age in place?
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that so much. I think, anymore, if you're doing a webinar, you're on the internet, you got to have a top 10 like David Letterman or a top 3 or something like that. So this is actually my condo. And I converted it. My parents are down below me, and my husband and I are here, and we did it with age in place in mind. Not exactly universal design and not ADA. It was what I like to call just smart design. Not everything works for every person. So my top 3 is first, safety. what kind of things do I need to have in an environment so I feel safe? And it might be little things like I want a grab bar toilet paper holder. So I don't have to be like Grace and Frankie and get stuck on the toilet after I had knee surgery or whatever, and I can't get back off and I'm putting the scarf over top of the statue. It might be that I have a camera on my door so that I can see who's at my door before I open it. No matter what they say, I want to see, do they look a little seedy or that kind of thing? It could be that I just need to replace my seating with a little bit higher seats. That's a safety issue. If I can get up and out a lot easier, it gives me more independence and more confidence. So opening spaces up, I think we can do an incredibly intelligent design and good looking design. You can see the before and after here. And implementing those things. And my third, which everybody knows, I'm on the potty train. I love a bidet, a washlet from Toto or a Brondell. I think the Japanese and the Europeans really hit the mark on it. There's nothing that helps you with increased health, independence, and dignity than taking care of things for yourself in the bathroom. So I think that's fantastic. Like, this is my bedroom. Some things that I did in here was I put IKEA storage on the left-hand side wall. So that's all storage cabinets and a little bench for me to sit down to change my shoes, take off my clothes. Well, I didn't have enough room, so I just put wallpaper on the wall as my headboard. To be able to reduce that scale. I also ended up these sliders open all the way either way. So if I would have to have knee surgery or something like that, and I would need a walker or wheelchair, or just, I can open them completely open, or I can close them and have some privacy. I think there's a lot of things that you can do. You can do excellent storage. You can even, like, this is again IKEA. I tried to blend the old with the new, but how do I do a lot of storage? How do I have mood lighting? I have blinds that automatically close. Lighting is one of the biggest things. So, if we have safety, we have bidets, and we have lighting, I need to be able to control my light. I need to have a lot of light. I need to have natural light, if at all possible. And then I need to control my lighting with either Philips Hue or a circadian light so that I have an amber color at night and it doesn't screw me up sleeping.
Well, I've been there, so I think it's gorgeous. And I can imagine growing old very nicely there. I have a question, and I think it really goes right into that. Ownership management of senior living communities typically engage a design firm who helps create the space and tailor the interiors. Tracy would like to know, with aging in place, who does a consumer go to for products that are tailored and are appropriate specs for their environment? Which I think is a really good question. So, Kevin, you're nodding your head. Let's see what you have to say.
It is really interesting because this comes up a lot outside of this context of this question. Is once I do a model apartment, they start moving people in and they want to know where that furniture is that I did in the model. They want to buy it. So the wonderful thing about what we get to do is that the furniture we typically do put into our buildings, the upholstery is made for a senior. The appropriate dimensions, the heights, the seat depths. You're not going to typically find a lot of this in the retail world. So where do they find this? Well, they find people like Dale, who is a certified aging in place person, or perhaps if I guess they just need to seek out someone within the design industry who can get these pieces of furniture for them. Perhaps if they get the specs, they can go to a retail store that might sell the same manufacturer, but we want it in this one. And so it's not a cut and dry answer. Sorry.
Is there a place that people could go to if they've got family members who are, say, in a community and they want to maybe do some more adaptable elements for them? Is there a site? Is there somewhere that they can go to get more information if they've already moved into kind of a designed place?
I don't think so. I mean, that's why I created Best Living Tech, because like everyone was calling me on, where do you get a toilet paper holder that's a grab bar? Where do you get a bidet? Where do you get this? And I think there's a real need to
Mhm.
the extent that we're now going to work with tweaking Williams Sonoma, West Elm, and Pottery Barn's lines to be able to be age friendly.
Nice.
So we are starting to move down the right path. And I'm so excited that in a very short period of time, you're going to be able to go to those retail providers and actually buy age appropriate furniture that you can get easily in and out of, and you don't end up feeling stuck or sitting on the edge of your seat the whole time, not comfortable.
Well, we just got a comment from Greta at Style Nations, and she says, we do furniture and are about to launch an assisted living range. So just for our designers out there, Style Nations is about to launch an assisted living range. So that's, that's great.
There's
Dale?
something, yeah, I did want to say something else. Lisa brought up an interesting point about her grab bar toilet paper holder. Okay, so yes, you can buy it, but you also need the right person to install it.
Right.
Because the last thing you want to do is to slip and fall in a position like that. So
Holding it.
hire a qualified contractor to do that, who knows how to install it, where to install it, and taking it a step further, what about your shower? Grab bars.
And
Things of that
placement
nature.
of,
The
and what-
appropriate shower head, the sink at the right height, levers that are easy to turn on and off for hot and cold, levers as doorknobs, holes in the kitchen, not knobs. It just goes on and on. You really should consult with someone who can help you solve these challenges for you. And an aging in place specialist is probably the best person to turn to.
Dale, I think that that is an excellent point, in that you don't decide to fix your own car, right? I don't
Right.
like hear a little clink and I go, oh, I'm going to go down to the parts store and try and figure out what it is, and then hopefully get the right thing and then try and install it. Yet when it comes to our homes, we've been kind of I don't want to say brainwashed, but HGTV has told us that we can do everything in a 1 hour show. And what we really need to do is look at the experts. There are folks that are mission driven, like Dale, that have went out there that you could pay an hour for consulting, which is nothing. It's going to be cheaper than going and sometimes getting a massage, to get the right information, instead of making a mistake and then having to have it redone.
Well, and the mistake can be costly in that if it isn't, to Dale's point, if that grab bar isn't installed correctly, somebody falls and they're holding the grab bar because it really wasn't secured in, and now they've broken a hip or something. So there are some really dire consequences if somebody is doing it themselves and doesn't not quite know what they're doing.
I just want to add to the conversation too, because you can go into the big box renovation stores and you're starting to see some of these like Moen and Delta. They've got products, grab bars available. They've got products, but that's not the whole picture. Often people think aging in place, installed grab bars, and I'm done. And we do not have a source like we do in the commercial sector, or hospitality or healthcare. With furnishings, it's usually two different divisions. So I do a lot of work in the residential home furnishings, and often a lot of designers are really challenged because when they're working on a project, their clients are going online, buying the new sofa on Wayfair, buying this or buying that. Hey, I bought a sofa for $200. Well, yeah, let's just look at that sofa. How long is it going to last? What's it made out of? Look at the VOCs and the toxins that it might be off-gassing into your environment. And so aging in place isn't just about how you move within the place, but how well that environment is too. And products are we are going to see a whole new, more products on the market. This new ageless consumer is really defining the products and the spaces and what they want to see. And I remember about 3 years ago reading something from ASID, the American Society of Interior Designers article, that the baby boomers are changing the face of interior design. And you know what? How true is that statement? Like, it's they are seeing the need for that. but they're also smart enough to know that I can't do this. I can't just go to Wayfair and buy all this. I
Right.
need that professional to help me pull this together.
Well, we have one of our folks who is listening to today's webinar. Deirdre says, I've always said that my role as a designer is to prevent clients from making very expensive mistakes. And boy, no kidding, right? And she said, you know, she thanks us all for advocating for move-in coordinators. So yes, we're right on track, guys. Dale, you said something to me about aging in place is not limited to seniors. What?
It's absolutely true. It's for everyone and everyone at every age. So I have a little story to tell you. Our very first clients at my Aging in Place USA company that I launched 3 years ago, the very first client that came to us is a woman that I had known. She and her husband are professionals and they have 2 children. The children at that time were single digit. And she came to me and said, I've watched HGTV and all the other shows, and I've made so many mistakes in my home, buying furnishings, doing things that just didn't work. But now I have a real problem. My 6-year-old son is sliding and slipping on the floor. We've had him tested. There is nothing wrong with his brain. We just don't know what to do. Can you come over and take a look at our house? And so I was happy to do it. And we did a complete survey of the home. So a large home, over 4,000 square feet. And it's a multi-generational family. So it's not just 2 children, but it's also grandpa, and grandma sometimes comes to visit from the other side. So the first thing we did was we took a look at the floors. And in most of the home, the floors are stone, and they were highly polished stone, and they were very slippery. And so I explained to my client and friends that there were so many choices that you could make about this. Some were more expensive than others. You could remove and replace the floor, very expensive, very dusty, and you need to move out, and so on. You can hone the floor, which means you can have someone come in with equipment and take that shiny, slippery surface off the floor. And that was a solution also. But the simplest one was to pour a chemical on the floor, which lasts for a year or 2. And if you think about hotels that you've walked into, or restaurants where the floor is very shiny, but it's not slippery, it's because they've treated it with a chemical. And so they chose that route. But we also checked out the rest of the home. And it's a beautiful luxury home. And in grandpa's bathroom, we looked everything over because he's in his 80s. We wanted to make sure it was all comfortable. There were no grab bars. We checked out the shower. It was a magnificent shower, huge. But unfortunately, the hot water wasn't working, and he had never complained to them about it either. So for months and months, he was living with cold water in his luxury shower. So this went on and on. The staircase needed to have a better secure handrail. The children's rooms needed to unclutter a little bit. Everything and anything needed to be done. This is an illustration of that bathroom that I showed you earlier. This is what you could do for someone, including a handheld shower, so women don't need to get their hair wet. Mom and dad or grandma and grandpa can have a seat in their shower, and you can use a handheld. And you see there's no step threshold, step up, step down in that shower. And all of these things make a major difference. Also, look at the faucet. It's a single lever. You just lift it up and move it left to right for hot or cold or in between. There's so much that you can do in someone's home to make it comfortable. And so aging in place is not limited to any age, because we helped a 6-year-old from getting his head bruised so many times, and we helped grandpa by having a warm shower again. So aging in place is for people of all ages.
Agreed. Agreed.
I just love to add into that. I had a conversation not that long ago with a paramedic, and she said to me, "You wouldn't believe how difficult it is for us as paramedics to go into places, having to maneuver into through small doorways, small hallways, downstairs." And so that leads you to think also, what you're doing for people that are bringing products into your home, whether they're delivering furniture, appliances, healthcare professionals. Think of a healthcare professional that might be in there, a PSW that's supporting an elderly, and how they, or a person with a progressive condition, and how they're maneuvering through that space. So it's not just about aging; it's about everybody, from that woman that's pregnant to the small children, to the elderly, to the people that come into your home to deliver product or service your environment. It's just the right thing to do.
And if you're renovating, think about those door openings. It's not that difficult to enlarge a door opening. And that is a lifesaver if you need to bring a stretcher through someone's home and evacuate them very quickly and get them to the hospital.
You can even do pocket doors because
Yes.
a door that opens up takes a bit of room, and people don't understand that, and it gets in the way. If you have the ability to do pocket doors, you can gain so much more of an opening with the same exact space.
Or barn door.
Or a barn door. Exactly. Or the slider ones that I showed in my slides.
Right.
That's
Hardware has
brilliant.
improved. The hardware for those pocket doors has improved considerably, where we had to worry about them falling off the hinges and then the pocket door getting stuck in the wall. All of that, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to see a tremendous amount of improvements in products. And so even the barn door hardware, you can get some pretty great hardware out there to ensure that you are, that those pieces are functioning well for you.
Well,
Yes.
and that brings us to, what would your top priorities be, Linda, when it comes to making a home modification as an investment? What would be your top 3 priorities?
Access into the home first, number one, top priority. I have a family member that can't come to visit me, and I know I already have mobility issues, and getting up and down even 4 stairs is a problem. So my number one is going to be the access into the home. Number 2 is going to, believe it or not, I talk a little bit about wellness in aging in place also. So number 2 would be lighting. I've noticed I have extremely poor lighting in my home, and I blame myself, like, oh my God, I can't find my black socks on my black bed, on this black on black, so hard. So lighting, and then my number 3 is probably going to be, I want to think, air quality for me right now. That really contributes to a well environment and a quality of life that I think is important for aging in place. And wellness is something that we're not talking about in the realm of aging in place, because we always think it's about how I maneuver through that space, and and how am I not preventing falls in that space. But I want to have wellness within my space.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to add to the top 3 on the priorities?
I think that the air quality, I actually have air quality machines in my unit that are mobile. I have one for each room. And the reason why I did that is, number one, I have asthma and some allergies. But as you are stuck in the home more, your air quality is poorer, especially
Right.
if you end up in communal living. And you don't feel comfortable like opening up your windows because it's the Midwest and it's snowing, or Seattle and it's or it's Texas at this point. So
Right. No, clean air is the most important thing. We have another question. We want to take these as we receive them. Katrina would like to know, what about area rugs in these homes? Okay, this is a big one. Do you guys want to just answer in unison? 1, 2, 3.
No.
Oh.
Now,
Okay,
I
there you
thought
go.
that, wait, hold on. It's not just a no. Because with my grandmother with Alzheimer's dementia walking around, I did a lot of experimenting when she lived with us, and my parents. If a rug is very, very low,
Good. Yeah.
not high, it doesn't have a big cushion underneath it and all that kind of stuff, and then you properly attach it all the way around the edge, so that it almost really has nothing, it cannot cause a problem. You need to have a correct transition there. So the answer is not always no, but I would say if you are unsure, then no. So,
Okay, great. I'm going to go back to, we were talking about sliding doors, pocket and barn doors, and we have a comment from Jane Skeeter. Hi, Jane. Thanks for joining us. She says, pocket doors, barn doors, and sliding doors can be obscure glass that provide privacy and transmit light.
Yes.
That's another thing that we really didn't talk about, but certainly is another bonus. And I do think you have a little bit of that in your condo too, right, Lisa?
yeah, David, if you want to go back to the slide of the kind of the entry in the dining room, I want to actually, yeah, this one. What I want to show there is that drapery treatment, both on the side to the kitchen and directly in the middle of the screen. So directly in the middle of the screen. Yep, exactly. Oh, that's wonderful. Those are drapes. That's a way for us to divide the space without having a physical door. And we have that both on the kitchen, so nobody can see my dirty dishes if they just walk in the house. I can slide it over. Or I can use those if I'm having a dinner party. I can have people coming into the kitchen without our dinner party being interrupted. I could have done those with the hard ones. If you go to the next slide, that would be, or down at the bathroom.
And you did it at the bathroom and
The green one?
right,
Yes.
that one.
So these go all directions. I can change the lighting in there. I have a LED light. I can change the color temperature. And so these can slide all different ways. And you'll notice that I divided them up in very small panels.
Mhm.
That way I have a minimum on one side and a minimum on other that they can stack. Instead of, I think a lot of people think a huge barn door that's like 6 feet or 5 feet or something like that. You can make them fairly tiny. So I hope
That's
that
great.
helps.
That's
What I like
great.
what you did, Lisa, was with those drapes in the living room area, you can separate space to give people privacy, but now you can have two separate spaces without a transition, which I know you had mentioned earlier, not having a difference in flooring or a wall or some sort of obstacle to go through, which I think is great.
And I apologize for bouncing around a bit, but we had another contribution from one of our collaborators regarding this discussion that was brought up by Katrina regarding area rugs. And Laura says the area rug disclaimer for assisted living and memory care communities is no go there per code. So code will disqualify an area rug in those two areas of senior living communities. So assisted living and memory care, that's not a great idea.
With
And it's
one exception, there is an exception for that. If you can manage to secure it below the floor level so that you have an area rug that's at the same height as the surrounding flooring in a senior living community, it will meet code. And it needs to meet the friction coefficient also.
So that's more like a hospitality environment where you do
Yes.
a hotel. Yes.
But it could be we've done it in senior living.
Right, right.
Lisa, we have somebody who wrote in and asked if you would please give width and depth and height of the bathroom sliding doors. So I would advise Deborah, if you go to the agelesslivingcollaborative.org website, you'll be able to pose a question and we'll direct it to Lisa and then she can respond to you directly.
That would be fantastic because I don't remember.
We're about out of time. This has been an amazing webinar. I thank all of you for participating. I do believe there's a part 2 that we have to have. There's so much content for the aging in place population and for the people interested in making sure it's done properly. So audience, please look for us to present yet another aging in place down the road. Our next webinar will be in March, date to be determined, and it will address technology in the senior living communities. So that's going to be very exciting to hear about all the technologies being employed to assist seniors in having the best possible outcome in their lives. Thanks again, Kevin, Linda, Dale, and Lisa. And thank you to David for running our slideshow. And I do hope you guys will join us again. next time discussing technology. Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.